Okay, on this tutorial I'm going to show you how to sew bag C and bag D. I'm only going to do one bag this time. I'm going to do C because I've already completed D. Why am I not showing you how to do both of these bags? Well, it's pretty simple. They're identical. The only thing that's different is the size of the bag. Same pattern, same directions. You're still going to cut 2 pieces of fabric, and then I highly recommend that you cut 2 pieces of interfacing. I say interfacing and not batting. And the interfacing is just a little bit thinner, but it still is sturdy enough for a little bag that goes inside your purse. You don't want it super thick. So what I'm doing now is bag C, which is pattern 8. I've already cut my pieces out. I'm doing the same bag, and then this is my interfacing that I put on. Now what I'm going to do is, just like I'm going to line these up with my girls facing up like it's really going to matter. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my faces together. I'm going to sew down the top, and I'm going to sew down the bottom. Of course, top and bottom to you guys. And once I get that completed, I'm going to turn it so I can see the pretty side, which is the right side. This is the opposite side, the back side. And then I'm going to put my zipper in. Now I do this, I'm going to do about a 1/4 inch hem across here. That's approximately 1 foot pedal. So if I were to lay I'm going to see if I can get this lowered here and show you. So if I put my fabric in here and I drop my pedal on the other side, this is the edge of my fabric. It's right up next to the foot pedal. Well, not the foot pedal, the pressure foot. And I'm going to just sew down here. That's going to give me about a 1/4 inch, and you can see the 1/4 inch marking back here if you'll notice. Now all these patterns that are in the bags, these bag patterns, will tell you that you're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now on your machine we have 5/8, and if you go to the left of the 5/8, and now notice I'm on this side and not this side, so I'm inside because this is where most of your material guides are going to be. So if I go to the next line to the left of my 5/8, I'm going to have 1/2 inch. So that's going to be your standard seam allowance for your bags. For any of my outlines, or when I'm just tacking my bags together, and of course the instructions are just telling you to maybe do a running stitch or to seam along the line, I always do about a 1/4 inch, because by the time I go over to my 1/2 inch, I'm good. I've got another 1/4 that I'm moving over, and you won't be able to see the seam allowance that I'm doing. So I'm about to sew the top side of my bag, and I just want to bring to your attention I'm only putting 1 pin on one side just to keep the whole pattern stabilized. It's not necessary to really do the notches in these because you can use your ends to match up your patterns, and by the time you start closing off the sections in the corners, there's only one way to go. So notches aren't that super important. Okay, so I finished sewing, and the last thing that I did before turning this to the proper side was to butterfly, or the actual seams open. So make sure you do that on that side before you turn it. Then when you turn it, give it a hard press on the corners so that you have a nice little closed seam right here, because your zipper is going to go in here. I did that for both sides. I didn't sew around here. I left that alone. This is going to be the section inside the bag that's going to unfortunately show, but it's not that bad. Still, if you do this, it keeps it looking nice and neat where it doesn't get tangled up. And inside it's not that bad. This is about the worst you'll see, is just the little seam right here when you put it together. So what I'm going to do first is attach the zipper, and then I'll start connecting the sections here, so it'll be very easy. This is my zipper. It's going to be longer. What you need to know is whenever you're folding this over and you're getting ready to put your zipper in, that you leave enough room here, because you're going to have to piece the bag together. And don't worry if you have some length here that's going to be tucked down in the bag. It's not going to hurt anything, so don't even worry about that. If you want to put a shorter zipper in, you're more than welcome to do that. You can find a shorter one. This one here is actually, and you measure from this section right here down to the notch. This is a 12-inch zipper. I could probably get by, let me see, I could probably get by with a 9-inch. I was going to go pull and look at that and see. So I'm going to pause and pull a 9-inch. I'm going to see if that's going to. So I'm decided to go with the 10. If you want to know how to measure a zipper, you measure from the slider, this slider, down to the stop point. So from the slider down, that's 10 inches, and that should be plenty. So I don't need to use this 12-incher on this one. It's just going to be too much overhang. So this will help me line up a little bit easier on where I'm going to go with this. And I know I'm going to have a little bit of hang, so not a big deal. I've got to allow for a 1/2 inch seam and still be able to get to the zipper portion. So you're going to have to eyeball it, or you're going to have to measure. And I like to come down in this one. I'm going to come down about 1 inch, and I'm going to use it right there. So I don't really need to mark it. That's what the markings are, those little circles on your pattern. It's for the zipper where you can mark it. But with anything, you may have to trim sometimes, because things don't line up properly. So sometimes those markings are going to be off a little bit. So the main thing is where you're going to start it and where you're going to stop it to allow for a seam allowance. So if you know you have a 1/2 inch seam allowance, just push it out to another 1/2 inch. So I'm on the 1. I'm going to start sewing on the 1, and I'm going to stop on the 11, because my pattern from end to end is 12 inches. So I'm just going to bring it in 1 inch, and that's where I'm going to stop. And then I'll just end up tucking this down into the pattern itself. And I can do a couple stitches on top of the bag to actually, and I'm talking about like if I have to, right here, make a little couple stitches across there, and it'll help stop this zipper head or slider, I'm sorry, from going down inside the bag where you can't catch it. So I'm going to go ahead and start applying my zipper. And I like to use a pencil because I know it'll erase, so not a big deal. I'm going to start just putting a little marking here and a stop marking here. Okay. So I just put some little guide marks here just to kind of help me. It doesn't matter where they're at as long as you can see them. And the first thing you do is you turn the slider upside down, place the edge of the zipper onto the fabric. So when you turn it over, you can see the teeth facing you. So I don't know if y'all can see that very clear or not. Let me try to zoom in. Okay, and this is kind of dark, so I apologize. I've got the light on. So the zipper teeth are right here. And I'll open that. Maybe that'll help a little bit. And what I'm going to do is pin it right next to those zipper teeth. Not underneath it, because you don't want the slider to grab a hold of your fabric and get locked up in there, and then it'll break the zipper. But because this is a very soft, cool zipper, it's not anything expensive. Pardon me. So you remember you have to change out your foot. So you get your Merino bag out and look for your zipper foot. I've been using this quite a bit making these bags. So zipper foot is number 4. So you see that number 4 right here. And it's designed to, depending on how the bag's in there, to either sew, I'm going to have to turn that out. I burned that, so I want to turn it out. Pardon me. It's made to either walk on this side of the zipper or this side of the zipper. So this little bar, it'll slide on your pressure foot area depending on where the zipper goes. So what I was just mentioning earlier is when I put that iron-on fabric, the iron kind of got dropped a little rust on here, and I don't want that to show. So I can just turn my bag this way and put my zipper on. So I'm just going to turn away from that, so it's not a big deal. All right, so I'm going to pin my zipper. Once you get used to putting zippers in and you learn how to use that foot, you will not have to pin your zippers down. You can just walk it through. So I'm going to demonstrate, and I'm going to lower my camera so you can see it. Okay, now remember to change out the foot, there's a little red button right here, and you simply just push it and it'll drop the foot. Now I've seen people do this one of two ways, but the easiest way for me is to just put my foot in, line this little bar up at the bottom, squeeze that red button, push that foot up in that little groove, and just drop the button. That's how I do it. Some people drop the foot and try to grab a hold of it, but it's not always going to work like that. Okay, the only pin that I put in is my starting pin, just so I mark where I'm at. And when I start sewing, I open my zipper up, and so that I give the slider out of the way, so it's not going to interfere with where I'm going to sew. The next thing I'm going to do is take my pin out, and I'm going to line up my zipper in. Now I don't want to sew this section down. I'm just going to start just above the top stop area. That's that little metal piece right here. And I'm just going to start just above that. And I'm going to push my pressure foot over because I'm going to be on the left side of the zipper, and drop my needle and drop my pressure foot. Now, this is what I'm talking about, walking it down. As you're sewing, keep it straight and walk it down. You can eyeball it. As long as the teeth are right above the line, you're not going to have any problems sewing. See if I can focus in on that. Okay, here. I'm just going to focus in on it. Okay. Trying to get this thing to autofocus. Okay, so there's my zipper, there's my teeth, and I've just got my fabric lined up nice and smooth. If you can see that, right on the edge. So I'm just going to walk it as it's sewing, and it's going to keep it nice and straight for me. Okay. Now the thing is you have to really eyeball your needle to make sure you keep it right on the edge of the fabric as you're going down. Right on the edge. When I say edge, I mean right on this edge as you're sewing down. Okay. And I also want to say that although my selected pattern here, it has a lot of blue, and that my zipper's got black because there's a lot of black in here, I'm using white thread. I mean, it doesn't matter. Just using the dominant color, and it's not going to be it's not going to be visible. Just going to keep walking it down. And you notice I slow down just to make sure that I am, I'll show you. I'm slowing down just to make sure that I'm actually getting that line nice and neat. Let's see if I can see that. Well, this is really not working out for me. Okay. So there's my line going down, and this is really focused in, so there's not much left here. The teeth are right here, and then that's my seam line. So I'm going to continue walking this down. And remember I said I'm going to get down here. Let's see. And I'm going to stop because I don't want to go all the way past where I'm going to need to sew these pieces together. So, since I turned it out, I don't have my marking, so I'm going to just mark this as my stopping point. So 1 inch, and I'm just going to mark that as my stopping point. Okay. Make sure that you are free and clear of any stragglers. This is what we call the stragglers. They're these pieces of string that just kind of hang on. Okay. It's really wonky here today. Okay. And while I'm speaking of snipping stragglers, please make sure that you keep a trash can between you and your partner, and that you throw your waste in the trash can and not on the floor. Okay, so, okay, I got my zipper in successfully. All the way down, all the way up. Next thing I need to do is turn this inside outwards and start connecting the ends. So open my zipper, flip my bag. Go ahead and move my zipper to the middle. It's not necessary to close it. So the first thing you do is lay it flat like this. If you see this, you're going to connect these. You're going to connect this wide piece with these two pieces right here on the zipper. So just line that up. I gotta move my zipper out of the way. So I don't want to go over. You probably won't have to do this on yours. I've got to move my zipper out of the way here because it's trying to get underneath there. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and sew. Now, I'm a little different. I like to, when I sew my 1/2 inch, I go between the edge and the 1/2 inch and I make another seam. I do that for the corners when I close them up as well, so it's sturdy and won't come undone. Okay. I am going to pin down one side just to keep it stabilized. And if you find that they don't match up perfectly, don't worry about it, because once you sew across and you close the corners together, it's really not going to matter in the grand scheme of things, because you have a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so it's going to kind of take up some of that bulk there. Alright, so I'm going to have to change my zipper foot out. So I'm going to drop that, put it back into my Bernina bag and shut it up. Because I don't need it now. Put my bag back into my cover until I need it later. Put my number 1 foot back on here, which is your regular sewing foot. Okay. So mine's not lining up properly because I did take some trims out. It's not a big deal. The main deal is to make sure that you've sewn all the pieces together that's there, and that you don't have any gaps. I did sew my zipper down too far, so I'm just going to bring it up and just clip it a little bit just to get that string out. And I'm going to go back and add a seam underneath there. And I'm going just right on the line, so I'm still 1/2 inch. I just want to, it just kind of got under the 1/2 inch. I want to make sure I stay true to that 1/2 inch mark. Okay. Now, right above my line, I'm going to go ahead and trim off that excess because it's not necessary to have that. It's not going to make or break me, but it might get in the way when I start closing it. Okay. Now, next I'm going to connect these two ends together, and simply the same as on the bags, you just spread it open. So it's like this, and you just take the two ends, you spread it open, and you put it together like that, and just sew across it. So what I like to do is I'll put a seam, and then I'll come back, put another seam just to reinforce it. Alright, so I got this in closed. I'm going to repeat these steps on this corner, and then I'm going to do the same on this corner, and then you're going to end up with a bag that looks just like this, and just a little bit bigger. Okay, that's how you do these two little bags.